Okay, well, it's noon, so let's go ahead and get started. We recently started a new series called Lunch and Learn webinars. Today's subject is on bonding for public works. These webinars are for DBE certified businesses enrolled in our DBE Supportive Services program, and they're designed to be brief, broad overviews on topics relevant to DBEs. And our goal is to do these once a month. So let's jump in here. I guess one housekeeping item is there's a chat box. Please feel free to type in your questions in that chat box throughout the webinar, and we will address them at the end. Your hosts today are Edward Duarte. He's our Construction and Public Works Specialist, and I'm Taylor Bowes, our Program Administrator. And I'm going to let Ed introduce himself and just tell us a little bit about his background.
Hello, everybody. I'm a retired construction company owner. The family has a 36-year business of doing public works. We're general engineering contractors. We have the A and B license. I have a degree in civil engineering, and for the past 50 years, I spent virtually my entire career in the construction field on public works projects. And as far as my own company is concerned, we always were the prime contractor. So we've been through all the trials and tribulations it takes involved in being a public works contractor.
Okay. So this is Taylor again, and I'm just going to give a brief overview of our DBE Supportive Services program. All of you on the call should be enrolled in the program already, so you should be somewhat familiar with our services. And I'm going to try to keep this pretty brief because we want the bulk of this session to be Ed talking about bonding. So the DBE Supportive Services program is housed at HSU, Humboldt State University up in Arcata, California. We serve Caltrans districts 1 through 4, so pretty much all of Northern California. Our services include a monthly DBE newsletter that all of you on this call should be subscribed to. If you're not receiving those, please let me know. We are doing these lunch and learn webinars monthly. We have a subscription to Govology.com. It's an online trading portal. We subscribe to it annually. It's a cost for us, and then we allow our DBE clients to have access to these trainings for free, and they're all procurement related. We have a DBE Supportive Services blog, and those articles are all written by Ed Duarte. Next year, we're going to be able to put on contractor workshops throughout our service area, so look out for those. You'll be receiving emails and notifications when they're coming up, and those will be in-person workshops. We do one-on-one counseling related to government contracting. The beginning of that process is receiving a needs assessment with our DBE bid specialist, Liz Brazil. So if you're in the DBE program and you haven't done an initial DBE consultation, please let me know. They're really helpful. We kind of go over a lot of different resources available to DBEs. And then that's also where we go over what your goals are and how we can help you and kind of develop a plan about how to move forward. We've had several businesses, have the attitude of, that they think that they're super familiar with all of the resources out there. And for example, the Caltrans website, they say, oh, we go to the Caltrans website multiple times a day. I think I'm aware of everything, but we've had several businesses then come back to us and say, oh my gosh, the amount of stuff I learned is incredible. And so it's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know. So, so hopefully we can set you up with one of those initial consultations. And then we also assist with business plan development. And this is actually a requirement of the program. just because of the way we're funded to implement this program. We need our businesses to have an updated business plan on file. So I'm sure some of you have worked with one of our business planning specialists to do that already, but if you haven't, again, let me know, and let's get that process underway. All right, so now I'm going to hand it back over to Ed.
Hello again, everybody. The course objective is just simply two important goals that we'd like to accomplish today. Give you an overview on how the bonding process works in the timeline of public works construction. And then for those of you who want to take that next step and get bonding, we're going to give you an introductory guide on what is going to be required. NorCal, as a DBE Assistance Center, does not do the actual evaluation for you on whether you qualify for bonding or not. That has to be done by a firm that specializes in bonding contractors. I'll talk more about that a little later, but these are the two goals that we're going to cover today. Key points to consider, and these always will apply on any public works contract. And let me step back for a moment and make a general comment. Number one, bonding and performance bonds are only required by the prime contractor. And subcontractors in the industry, it's become increasingly standard operating procedure that the prime contractor require the subcontractor to bond as well. I'm going to go into that in a little more detail, but the point I'm making here is that this workshop today, this webinar is focused on what exactly is bonding and why it's kind of difficult to obtain, and also to delineate the fact that only the contractors, construction contractors, are required to post bonds. Professional services, architects, engineers, construction managers, they will not be required to post a bond with any public works agency such as Caltrans, BART, SMUD, or any other typical public works agency. So the difference between bonding and insurance is going to be explained in detail. I mentioned a minute ago that if you are going to apply for bonding, you need to deal with an insurance broker who insures and bonds public works contractors. It's a specialized market, and not all agents are qualified to provide this service. Next. The points listed here under general conditions, they're the typical points of information that are shown on every single public works construction contract. And I emphasize the word construction. So if you're going to bid on a grading and paving job for the county, or a small multi-purpose building for the school district, or a pump station upgrade for a water district, water and sewer district, the general conditions are a part of every single specification, and they will always list these points. They'll give you an invitation to bid, the date, the time and place that they want to take the bids. What are the bonding requirements? They always have a copy of the bid proposal form, a short description of the job, what are the insurance coverages that will be required, commentary and requirements for paying prevailing wages and posting certified payrolls. If there happens to be a project labor agreement, it will be covered. What are the MBE, DBE, SBE? Those are all minority, disadvantaged, small, women-owned, disabled service veterans. Those business entities that contract may require the prime to allocate a percentage of the subcontracts to one of those categories. It may not have any, but increasingly more and more public works contracts do have some sort of percentage requirement. They'll tell you what the contract completion time allowed and what the liquidated damages, i.e. penalties, would be assessed to the prime if the project is completed late. What type of CPM schedule, critical path methodology, which is the actual schedule that the contractor is proposing to build the job. Submittals requirements, number of copies, the turnaround time. What are the change order procedures? A weather days allowance policy will always be spelled out. An important one, the pay application procedure and the retention policy. Per the California Contract Code, Public Contract Code, 5% of every monthly progress payment is required to be withheld by the owner from the general for a retention, and that 5% is not released until the project is completed and all closeout requirements are done. They'll always talk about a safety program, the SWIP plan, which is the erosion control plan, QA/QC requirements, and of course the closeout procedures. These points are always a part and listed in every single public works construction contract. Next, there are 4 types of bonds that the prime contractor will be dealing with. The performance bond is the actual guarantee that the contractor will build the project per plans and specs for the price stated in their bid proposal. The payment bond guarantees that the contractor, the prime, will pay all the bills, the subs, the suppliers, and of course the workers' wages and benefits. A maintenance bond, which I might add is not always required in every contract, but it is a growing more in popularity with owners. It guarantees that the contractor will honor all warranty and maintenance issues within the warranty period after the project is completed. Excuse me. The bid bond is a unique document. That's submitted with the prime's bid proposal on bid day. It has another name in the industry. It's called bid security. Its purpose is to serve as a deposit, if you will, with the owner, which guarantees that the low bidder, if awarded the contract, will sign the contract for the amount of their bid. That bid bond is worth 10% of the total bid proposal, and it is a negotiable document, a negotiable instrument. And I'll cover it. I'm going to come back to that. So if the low bidder pulls their bid without justifiable cause, the owner can then cash in that bid bond for its value, and that's applied towards the difference between the low bidder and the second bidder's price. For example, if you are the prime, you bid on $1 million job, your bond is worth $100,000. You're low, and you decide to pull your bid for whatever reason. Maybe you made a mistake or something, but there are legal requirements that you have to meet in order to pull a bid after it's been submitted and opened. So if you don't pass muster, if your reason for withdrawal is not deemed justifiable, then the owner is entitled to take that bid bond of yours, which is worth $100,000, and they will apply that money towards the difference between your low bid and whoever's second. If there's a $50,000 difference between you and the second bidder, they only use $50,000 and they don't assess you more than that. If it's worth $100,000, if the difference is $100,000, they will cash it and they'll take an entire $100,000. But they're limited in that it's only worth 10% of your bid. The important point here is that when this occurs, the bonding company will seek reimbursement from the prime contractor. this is not something that is, it's not a very good situation when that occurs, but it does happen occasionally. Next. So let's go forward and assume that you are a prime contractor, you have a bonding capacity, and you want to bid this particular job that you've seen come out advertised on the street. What happens is then that you should send a copy of the invitation to bid to your bonding agent and ask for a bid bond. Bear in mind that bonding companies, when they issue bonding approval, they also oversee what jobs you bid. So it isn't an automatic that you turn in and request a bid bond and that you're going to get it. For most of us, it's 99% of the time. They might ask a few questions. Are you sure you can handle this? What's your backlog? Have you got enough people? It looks like an awfully short completion time. Are you comfortable bidding it? Once you assure them that this project would fit in your workload, then they'll issue that bid bond. And the bid bond will reference the project, the date that bid is due, and state that it's worth 10% of your bid. Next, when the bids are open and the low bidder's proposal is fully vetted for compliance with the request for bids, staff will then recommend to the governing board, i.e. a board of trustees for a school district, city council, county board of supervisors, whatever agency's governing board governs that particular area, that agency, the staff would recommend to them, we've checked all the I's and everything, all the T's are crossed, the bid bond is fine. Please send a notice of award to the successful low bidder. And next. When we receive that notice of award, then as a contractor, the first thing we do is call our agent and say, hey, we got the job, they've sent us a notice of award, and I need the performance and payment bonds. And they will issue a performance bond in the amount of 100% of your contract value and a payment bond in the amount of 100% of your contract value. When the contract and the bonds are received by the owner, and you send them in, the bonds and the contracts, the signed contract. When they receive them, they again do another vetting process, make sure everything is on the up and up. Then the owner will send you, the prime, a notice to proceed, and the contractor can begin work. Now, what does that bond do? Well, if for some unfortunate reason the contractor defaults during the course of the project, the bonding company will assume control of the project and all of the prime's equipment and subs. The surety will then proceed to complete the project in whatever manner it deems necessary for the stated contract amount. If the cost to complete exceeds the remaining balance of the unpaid contract, and it always will, the prime is personally liable for that difference. So what do I mean by that? Let's use the same example. You're the prime, you bid on this $1 million building, you got the job, you started work, and halfway through this project, you've been paid for 50% of progress on progress payments. You're 50% complete. And for whatever reason, whatever happened, you go broke. You're out of business. The owner will then call your bonding agent and say, well, Ed went out of business and we need to get this building finished. You need to come in and finish it. So the bonding company comes in and they have an open blank checkbook to do this. They can keep my subs, they can fire half the subs, they can bring in new subs, they can keep my superintendent, they can do whatever they want. They can bring in a whole brand new general contractor and a whole brand new team. It doesn't matter. Their goal is to get the job finished. And they start a tab. And when the job is finished, they go to the owner and say, okay, we can, as per our bonding agreement, we guaranteed, here's your building, 100% done, pay us the balance of the contract. Well, we were halfway done, so there's $500,000 in the pot. They pay that to the bonding company, and then the bonding company comes back to me, or the prime, and says, okay, well, we collected from the city, we got the $500,000, but it cost us $700,000 to finish it up. And that, like I said, that almost always is the case. Excuse me. That $200,000 differential is the responsibility of the prime contractor, and that's when they go after your assets. So how do they get those assets? Well, here are the requirements for qualify for bonding. You must be currently licensed by the Contractor State License Board for your particular classifications, A license, B license, or a C specialty license. You must have been in business at least 3 years under that namesake. It doesn't mean that you have to have, you can qualify if you've been in the business longer, but the business itself under your ownership has to have been in business at least 3 years. You should have a line of credit, and you need at least 10 to 20,000 available for working capital. Now that sounds like a lot of money to some people, but remember, this is a public works contract that you would be working on, and the prevailing wage rate requirement alone would dictate that you need 10 to 20,000 in working capital or a line of credit. So that's not an unreasonable requirement. They want proof that you keep a formal set of books in-house. Next. You're going to have to show a 3-year track record of successful project completions with the names of the A&E firm, of the owner, and if you're a sub, they want to know what general you were working for. 3 years of personal tax returns and 3 years of financial statements for the company prepared by a CPA. And last and most important, you will be required to sign an indemnification agreement that essentially pledges all of your assets to the surety as collateral. Now, when I make that comment in my other lectures, people's eyes get real big, and there's a look of concern, and rightfully so. Just let me say, this agreement applies to all construction contractors who apply for bonding. There is no discrimination on color, gender, sex, or anything. It is a function of what kind of bonding you're asking for. I don't care if you're Granite Construction or DevCon or any of the big giant contractors, they all have signed indemnification agreements that essentially guarantee the surety. If they did default, they've got assets to cover the bonding company's efforts of closing out their projects. Next. So if we recap some of the comments I've talked about, again, as far as a public works construction contract, only the prime is required to provide a bond to the owner. And there is no exception on that for primes, because it's in the code, it's in the public contract code. All projects over $25,000 will be bonded. Now, I'm asked all the time by the subcontractors, why do you want me to sub? You've already bonded the project. You already posted a bond to the owner for the project. And the answer is pretty simple. Yes, I have. Yes, we did. But that bond is in favor of the owner, and it protects the owner from any slip-ups on the project, from any unpaid bills. It protects them, it guarantees it's going to be built, etc. It does not protect a subcontractor who works for me that's going belly up. And if you have any kind of experience in the business, especially even as a prime, I mean, even as a sub, let alone as a prime, you know that if during the course of a project, one subcontractor goes belly up, they're not going to be replaced by another subcontractor at the same price. It's always going to be more because of the risk involved. So if subcontractor credibility, viability is at risk here, it only makes common sense that the prime is going to say, wait a minute, I'm getting ready to issue a subcontract for concrete work for $500,000. I want to get some assurance. I want to guarantee that this concrete sub can do this $500,000 job, and I don't have to bring someone else in later on the project when he walks away from the project. So, in summation, most larger GCs are now requiring subs to be bonded, and those bonds are in favor of the prime. I'll be more than happy to answer a lot of questions because that comment always generates a lot of concern. The cost of the bond should always be included in your bid. If you're the prime, if these bonds cost anywhere from 0.5% to 3.75% of the contract value. It's not a big amount. It's not a big amount, but it should be included in your bid. And the same thing goes for the subs. The larger experienced and profitable firms will have the lowest bond rates. If you qualify, you're going to be given two values of your bond capacity. You're going to be given a maximum price per contract that you're allowed to bid and bond, and a total bonded project's volume cap. For example, you've qualified for bonding and your bonding company says, okay, we'll let you bid any job you want up to $375,000 in value. So don't be bidding on jobs that have an engineer's estimate of $1 million because we will not bond a project that bid. Your cap is $375,000. And we will let you do two projects a year. So we'll give you up to $700,000 worth of bonding capacity, but each individual job can only be $375,000. The indemnification agreement, as I said before, it is mandatory for all contractors, no exception. Qualifying for bonding, I think, should be every public work contractor's goal. Every contractor, every prime, it's a given. Every sub, I really think you should make every effort to get bonding capacity. I'm sorry, excuse me again. What is the difference between an insurance policy and an insurance policy? You collect money on a monthly basis or a semi-yearly basis, and that money goes in a pot, and then an event occurs, a claim is filed, and the insurance company pays. All right, that's an insurance policy. With a bond, because it is a guarantee, the surety is in essence bonding a contractor that they think won't ever fail. They're bonding your credibility, your viability, your profitability, and they'll even judge you on your character, and they look you over from head to toe. It's a long process. And while I'm mentioning that, I've had people actually say, well, I want to bid this job, so I'm going to go out and get a bond. And they think they're going to get it in 5 days. It takes 30 days just to do the application and turn in all the material that they're going to ask for, and then another 30 days to review you. It's like qualifying for a home on steroids. Okay, next. So to recap, it's required by the Public Contract Code that all bids be open in public. All contracts of $25,000 or more have to be bonded. The prime must turn in a sub-list with their bid, which lists every sub who's going to get a contract of at least 0.5% of the bid. All bids are subject to the complete requirements, as I mentioned before. As a subcontractor, you cannot be substituted out without justification. You'll find that bidding and dealing with the award and getting underway is a long process. The majority of contract awards to the prime would take at least 3 to 6 weeks for that vetting process of the bid, the posting of the bonds, getting the notice to proceed, etc. It can take months. We're getting ready to start a project that we bid almost 4 months ago, and we actually still don't have a notice to proceed yet. As a subcontractor, a reminder that no prime is going to sign your proposal. You will be signing the prime standard format. It's not your subcontract, it's their subcontract form. It's a very rare occasion that a first-time bidder gets a contract on their first bid in the public works arena. You must be bidding for plans and specs, and you've got to be competitive. Next. That's a very quick overview, but as I said, this purpose of this workshop was not to walk you through the process of getting bonding. It's to tell you what you have to do. So at this time, I'd be more than happy to open it up to questions.
So everyone, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask questions, or type your question in the group chat box. I don't see any questions in that chat box yet, but I'll give it a couple minutes. And while I wait for folks to type in their questions, just a couple of things. This webinar was recorded and will be posted on the YouTube channel and our website. So I'll be sending out the link to everyone for the recording probably sometime next week. And then sometime later today, I'll send out the slides for the webinar for your review. Also, like Ed said, this was designed to be a really brief, broad overview, and there's a lot that goes into this process. I'm sure Ed could talk days about it. So this is meant to be a starting point. And if you're enrolled in the DBE Supportive Services program, then you're able to schedule one-on-one sessions with Ed. So after this, please feel free to reach out to him. His email address is really easy and simple. It's just ed@norcalptac.org, or you can reach out to me and I'll connect you. But please do follow up with him. He's more than willing to meet with all of our DBE clients. So it looks like we did just get one question, Ed. It says, if we just do the professional service, do we need the bond insurance and DIR?
Okay, that's a good question. Again, as I mentioned earlier, this is for the construction contractor. But if you are providing professional services such as architectural or engineering or construction management, you do not need a bond, but you will be required to provide the necessary insurance coverage. And that insurance coverage will be spelled out in the RFP that was issued asking for the professional services. As far as DIR, most probably not. You will not need to do the certified payrolls because at this point in time, the Department of Industrial Relations is focused on getting all the construction trades and related workers on site to make sure they get paid prevailing wages. If, for example, if you're doing civil engineering design, that is not considered. That's not under the jurisdiction of the DIR.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions come through. So again, please follow up with Ed afterwards. And he can help with specific questions to you. He can meet with you one-on-one, a Zoom session with him separately. And thanks for everyone for joining our webinar today. Look out for the next one.
Taylor,
yeah.
I see that Juhao says, okay, we did pay it. Can we get it back? Can we have him give me a call? And then I'm curious to what he paid. Did he pay prevailing wages? And it depends on what he did. So I think I can answer that question better in person.
Okay, sure. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your afternoon.